Welcome back to another episode of the Day After Podcast.
What's up, guys? I gotta say, right off the bat, that was quite the episode.
Yeah,
Um, it
they,
was
they
it was
finally
great.
delivered. I think this was the first tribal council that I thought was like a really good tribal council. The other two were like kind of,
Straight,
they
kind of
were they were they
straightforward.
were straightforward. They were very standard votes. Even though that they were unanimous votes, it felt very standard and straightforward. This one was
Yeah,
chaotic and crazy. A lot of like bad gameplay, which is like across the board. There's a lot of bad gameplay in this
I
episode.
know.
I saw it somewhere, I forgot where, but like I think a producer from Survivor said that this season is like a modern day Gabon. And we've made references to the cast itself having the physical strength of a Gabon cast, but
Oh, man.
we're
I,
potentially getting like I don't know if we're gonna have tribal councils like this. I see what they talk about.
I like Gabon though, so it's like I get where
Oh
they're
no,
coming from.
no. So this is what's interesting is that I don't like Gabon because I think the cast sucks. I think the characters are really bad. This is Gabon with a good cast with good characters. So I'm for it if the characters are good.
Yeah. Either way, I feel things were definitely rough for quite a few individuals, though I can't really it's tough. I think the number one thing we can talk about to begin with is the challenge itself, which like they were even saying like, yeah, the waves were a lot rougher and it was only getting even more rough as it went on. Um, yeah, I mean like it's something where it's like, dude, like they had to like stop the challenge because they just straight up couldn't do the challenge.
Yeah.
Which I don't think I fault the people there because like I mean maybe it was like the edit and everything that made it
Yeah.
seem more intense, but like they do test out these challenges prior to make sure that they are doable.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm very curious what the actual time was for first off Taku to finish and how long it then took for them to move on to the next portion of the challenge. I'm very curious how long that time is because I bet you they saw Taku was making some progress of actually being able to do it because of Jonathan, and then they probably were like, okay, let's just let them finish and then make something like that.
yeah,
Because Jonathan literally had to throw Omer and Marianne to get them to the places that they needed to go. He was carrying the ladder by himself, and you saw like literally the entire tribes of everyone else had to like work together to barely pick it up.
I know. Like everyone needed Jonathan had to be like, oh, okay. He just was like,
Yeah.
the dude is a demigod.
Yeah, he's officially cemented himself as the next generation Joe Ingram or Ozzy.
Uh,
Like
yeah,
he's coming back. We get Jeff Probst literally acknowledging that was one of the best challenge performances. Like if
yeah.
Jeff is saying that to you, you're probably coming back.
Even if he doesn't make the merge in the sense of like, I think he's good for like the pre-merge. I'm talking about the Furge,
Yeah,
where things switch around and everything
yeah,
depending on what the challenge is. Like if they do the stacking stuff with your feet, I don't know what his dexterity is like,
yeah.
but like he has a huge target on his back. Like he is,
Mhm.
even if he falls victim to that, I still feel like yeah, they will definitely bring him back.
Yeah, there's going to be just straight up challenges that he just can't lose. Like
Yeah,
it's just going to happen.
he's just proven himself to just be like you know very dominant, and like it's not even like I don't know how you play that down because like
Yeah.
especially when you're trying to win a challenge like this, it's like hard not to be like,
Yeah,
yo,
I think he just can't play it down. I think he has to kind of just win, because like just looking at the try, like the rest of the casts, like he's clearly going to be looked at as the strong guy all of the tribe. Like there's no like you can't underplay that at this point. It's like that is clearly like what is going to be seen. So obviously a pre-merge, I think they're going to want to keep him for that reason. We do get a sneak peek of them trying to say maybe Jonathan that is 100% a bluff. I
Yeah,
find
because
nothing truthful in
we got to
that.
talk about the fate of this tribe, which
Yeah.
um because we didn't get a whole lot. We didn't even get anything from Ika. The blue team was
Yeah.
completely absent.
I
other
noticed
than
it was
Vinny.
interesting. Yeah, I was that, and that's why I kind of thought that Body was going, was because we got way more time on Bati than we did on Ika at
Yeah.
that point. So I was just like, it'd be weird if suddenly they're just going to tribal and we haven't talked to them yet.
Yeah, I was like thinking because like the episode happened like, and then granted I wasn't watching it live, but then I kind of like noticed just like because my clock was like right over there, I was like, whoa, we're already getting into the challenge early. But like the little things we have seen from Taku, one of which being both Omer and Chanel going to the prisoner's dilemma, since both Omer and Marianne, and they're like kind of the two, but like Marianne having kind of already established to be the person on the outs. That's half the tribe without a vote, and honestly, obviously Jonathan wants to keep Omer because they're such a good bromance. He's not going to get rid of his other ally, and so like it's just like if they go, Marianne is just straight up screwed.
Yeah, exactly. And I do have a little theory on when I think the idols are going to be activated. I don't know if you want to hear it because it's a bit of a crackpot theory. I will say it's very out there.
I'm always open to it because I mean, out of all the stuff we've seen in the trailer, the last thing we haven't seen yet was Tori finding hers, which
Yeah. So I have a theory that might not be who actually finds the idol.
Ooh.
Yeah. So even though we see Tori obviously reading it, I do want to say that the episode 5 is called "I'm Survivor Rich." So that means that someone finds multiple has multiple advantages out there, and because of that, I'm thinking that the person who finds the Ica tribe idol is the person who currently has multiple survivor advantages, which is Drea. And Drea has been seen very close to Tori. She probably lets Tori read it. Tori has the better reaction than Drea, so that's why they used her reaction. And I also saw someone say that they didn't think Tori was the one who read the potato line. They thought someone else did. So I'm guessing that by next episode the idols will still not be activated, but I'm guessing by episode 5 they will.
I think it's
or at least all of them will be found.
I think all of them out because we also found out that shit, Mike misread, and Daniel is not correcting him on the fact of like if it doesn't get read out prior to the merge, it will not be activated. And Mike is like, it just becomes one there, and then it's like, nah, no. And one, always read the fine print, as Daniel put, but two, it's like he might just straight up just say no to that. And then kind of like what he was doing, like he looked at Ica and was like, no one from there said Ica. Even if that's the case, like we have like a thing where it's like, if Marianne says it again at tribal, or not tribal, at the next immunity challenge, and let's say Drea or Tori, they have the idol, but they want to see if the other tribe goes first. And it's like when two people are too shy to say the thing, and so nothing ever happens.
Yeah, because I definitely don't think Marianne should be the one. I don't like she obviously she didn't take the Daniel or Mike advice or like idea of they didn't have to say it. There's been a lot of speculation actually about this whole thing, because a lot of people are saying that it seems like the idol says that you have to say the phrase at every tribal council. I mean, not tribal council, at every immunity challenge. Like it says that you have to say this phrase. So now that gets taken as you have to say the phrase or you have to do it to activate it. So there's a very which one is the true meaning of the phrase?
I feel like because like I was wondering, it was like if because he was like straight up not saying, I'm like, is production gonna, take him aside? I was like, yo, you got to do this next time. Because like if he found it and didn't say it, then obviously production would have said something.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah,
I know that a lot of times production will kind of just like let the players kind of play the game that's kind of being played, and they'll only intervene if they think that it's absolutely necessary. So yeah, I'm not sure about it, but I'm fine with. I personally, I think that it's okay to not say the phrase. I think that that's
yeah,
smarter. Like I think
it
that's
is
just
smarter.
that's the better play.
I think, yeah, you're right, and I feel like because last season, and I love like how there is like you start to see the like contrast because like and you basically because we got these different advantages, we think it would play out in a similar manner the next time, especially since no one knows about it.
Yeah.
But it's nice kind of like seeing how, oh crap, there are different ways these things can go about. And it's like, we're not getting the same story. So now we have this story of like, will they be activated at all due to Mike thinking, oh, I can just wait until the merge and then I get the idol that way. So so like that's one I'd say really great thing about 42 that we're getting this time around is the fact that they have this story going on with it.
Yeah, we're seeing the point of view from someone who has the idol and is able to just not say it. So we're basically getting like the Nasir point of view almost, if you kind of get like I think that's kind of like what we're going towards is that crazy like, oh my gosh, there's a third person to say it. I don't know if Mike will be the third person to say it. He might even just wait till the merge. But we'll see. Yeah, he after this tribal council, I think he might just want to activate it now.
Yeah. Before we get into that, because I feel like that's like the biggest thing we have to talk about.
Yeah.
But I really want to say that to like the last part of our of this.
Yeah.
But like I'm looking over my notes. First of all, I have to mention Fudge and Shiz.
Yeah, I wrote that down in my notes. I wrote notes for the first time on this podcast. I have notes.
It's a beautiful day where he's like, I was taken aback by it when you told me prior. But I feel like, the things of like, so, damn it, I'm saying all these things. So the thing with Mike is that, because he thinks it's the better strategy, and in the beginning of this episode he thought he was not I think he felt like, oh, he just had a straight up 4, whereas Daniel and Chanel were kind of in the middle, and when you have like stuff in the middle, that's the real power position. But I feel like Mike was just like in a straightforward, yeah, I don't have my vote, I have we have 3, that's good, even though I don't have a vote, and because like you have the numbers because like, oh, because you're a friend and you're because like he was friends with like Daniel, and obviously Daniel and Chanel have like a little alliance going on. I was like, oh, we're already set and good. And it kind of felt that way through the majority of the episode, like that it did seem like, oh, it was very much leaning towards that side, and it ended up being the case. But like the fact that with the prisoner's dilemma, in the back of my head, I was like wondering, it'd be cool. Before it happened, it was like, it would be interesting to see 2 people lose a vote.
Yeah, I said in my notes, it was really interesting foreshadowing because they make a whole thing about Daniel saying Chanel's vote is the most crucial vote going into this tribal, as we get a dramatic pan over into Chanel and Omer making it there and talking. And I want to say, Chanel plays this so extremely poorly, like legit one of the worst ways you could have played this entire prisoner's dilemma in her current position.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree. Like, I understand why she did it. It's just like, I don't know. I feel like
It's not just her decision. It's actually her talking to Omer. She literally says that she needs her votes. I'm going to do what's important for me to make sure that my group is like taken care of. And Omer takes this as, okay, great. She's going to protect her vote. Like, why would I have
Yeah,
to? Like, she just said she doesn't want to lose her vote.
I think I wonder if Jen and Marianne said that it was like a prisoner's dilemma thing.
Yeah.
If not, I feel like Marianne would have totally told Omer everything about that.
Yeah,
Because
right. She's been very transparent. Like, and
yeah,
that's what's really interesting about this is that it just seemed like they didn't take all of the necessary information and make a correct like decision based
I
on the
think it was
information.
communication.
Yeah,
Because we saw the last season, with Evie and his name's escaping
Deshaun.
Deshaun. How like they kind of were like, Evie was like, yeah. They were kind of out front with what they
Mhm.
needed to do.
Yeah,
Uh,
I wonder if production told them that they can't specifically say what side they're allowed to do now. That's what my question is, because before they were like, okay, I'm gonna protect my vote. You can risk your vote to get the extra votes. We had nothing like at all like that. It seemed like they had to kind of be like ambiguously talking about what they wanted to do,
yeah,
instead of being outright like how they want to do it. So maybe the production was like, hey, we want to do it like this because we think it would be better TV or something.
fair.
So I don't know. That could be another one of those twists that we just don't know because that's just a production thing that ended up intervening.
Yeah. Who's to say? It is interesting how it all just like panned out too.
Mhm.
And the thing is, Arnold could just like straight up, I wouldn't say forget about it, but like it won't occur to him like, oh, this happened. Because I don't think, unless Chanel and Omer do another prisoner's dilemma, which I don't think. I think they were very specific. Someone that hasn't been on a journey has to do it.
Yeah.
Um, we won't really see that because so. But then again, Omer's not really. He's not really in danger.
Yeah, he's got two more people before he is in danger. Like honestly, I think him and Jonathan are in the best positions on the tribe right now.
Yeah. Marianne, especially since she said she doesn't have a vote in general. And
Yeah.
like, because like, obviously when there's 14 people's left, you're thinking about the merge because pre-merge is starting to come to an end.
Mhm.
And, like, it was like, oh,
Yeah.
it's either going to be 13, 12, and very rarely, since like, I'd say Winners at War being the only exception, but then again, they brought someone back, is that very rarely do we see like 11-person merge, even with a 3-person or even with a 3-tribe season. So like in their heads they're like thinking, all right, it's going to be next tribal council or the one after that, to get rid of a possible merge threat.
Yeah.
um Kind of like what they did with Wu back in Second Chance, like,
Mhm.
you know
Yeah. I believe though Taku's going to make it to at least the fake merge or the Furge,
for,
pretty much just because we have been getting a bit more of the peaceful tranquility edits. Like everyone's kind of liking each other. I know thing with Jonathan's happened next episode. I truly don't believe any of that stuff actually is going to have any relevance or importance to the season. I think they're just trying to maybe give us like a someone from every tribe, and there's just no
yeah,
one really on Taku to like talk about in the preview. So they're like, let's just do this.
they typically like to do that so you don't
Yeah.
automatically assume who it might be.
Yeah.
Even like what they gave us last episode, or the episode before last,
Mhm.
with episode 2. Okay, Ryan. Even with like episode 2, with the preview for the episode that came out um last night when we're recording this, they were like, yeah, they kind of hinted that, oh, it could be, Vati going to tribal council. However, all that happened prior to the actual immunity challenge, and it was kind of like out of context thing. And so, it does give you a sense of like what might be going on. Like this time around, I definitely see Romeo complaining about Roxroy.
Yeah, I will say I think Roxroy is a very likely candidate for Ica to go, and I think Vadi could potentially also just go again because I think there's a lot of chaos and disarray there. So I really think it could go. I think it's one of those two that will go again.
I kind of want to see, and I'm not just because I have more to lose if they go to tribal council, but for the sake of like I think, we pretty much covered everything. Let's talk about the Vati Tribal Council, because that was obviously what made this episode so freaking great, was how that all played out. One, people us as a viewer, sometimes it's hard to forget that some people are unaware of certain things that are going on. And like that the fact that there is a no vote thing, different ways for someone to not have a vote. So, like that, and that surprise that Hai kind of had going in, it was, wait, what? How come like two people didn't vote?
Yeah, it looked like he was like, "Are we getting like screwed over right now? Is that how you guys? Is there like a rigging going on?" But it's like, nope, just two people just did not have their votes here.
Yeah, because usually in the past, at least when people said that they didn't have a vote, they were pretty hush hush, and it was big enough where the numbers just kind of fell in their favor. Where because one person had a lot more votes, obviously Jeff's not going to read everything else because it's like, that's enough.
Yeah. What's something interesting that I noticed here is that in past seasons, when someone couldn't vote, I believe they would write no votes on the paper and then put it into the urn. But this time they walked up and it said, go sit back down, pretty much. Like I said, you don't have a vote, go sit back down. So that's the little thing that I noticed, that this time they didn't do that. So yeah, it might have been a little more clear for Hai if he did reach in and find just straight up no votes.
Well, I don't think you're allowed to just reach in.
Well, no. I'm not saying Hai would have reached in. I'm saying Jeff would have reached in during the votes and showed no votes, and it would have been like, oh, someone had no votes.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, instead of just not having any votes being read.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it is interesting because just going into this, like Daniel and Chanel, in a different universe, this was where Lydia went home.
Yep.
Which Allison was like, no, we saw her one moment, and I was like, nah, come on.
Yeah, we almost got robbed there. But yeah, I mean, this was a domino effect. I think this whole tribal council, this whole like body going was a domino effect, starting with Chanel, risking her vote, created this giant like domino effect that caused a lot of people's games to just get blown up, because now it meant Chanel and Mike have now been outed in front of the entire tribe. Now everyone knows they had no vote. Obviously now Mike has to now tell them that he has the idol, because
Chanel can be like, yeah, because I wagered my vote during the little thingy.
And she said that she protected her vote. So now she's clearly lied about that.
Well, I mean, everything was just kind of like everything kind of just hit the fan in that one. All the shit hit the fan.
Exactly.
Daniel just like cowered out. He was like, no, it was her idea. It was her idea.
Yeah. No, I will say, so I think Daniel plays this extremely poorly. His decision to flip is the right decision.
Obviously.
It's how he does it he is completely wrong. He even says, Jeff, I have no chance of winning Survivor 42. So I now know he has no chance of winning Survivor 42, because they wouldn't have put that in otherwise. They would have.
I felt like contrary. Sometimes, like when people feel down on themselves, they say stuff like that.
I mean, I guarantee you, if any of these people are in the jury, they are not going to vote for Daniel. So
I don't think. Remember, we drafted him. He was like in the bottom three of our draft.
He was my second to last pick.
Yeah,
so he's actually overperforming right now.
clearly we don't. He was my first boot prediction, so
Yeah.
clearly we don't have too much invested or stock in this
Yeah.
man. I'm sure you're a great guy, Daniel.
I
But
think
like,
he's entertaining. I think he's great TV.
I think he is smart, but it's kind of like what he said, the paranoia, and
Yeah.
the paranoia was just like eating at him and stuff. And
Yeah. Also, he loses the idol. By the way, that Mike in the previous episode lost the idol, and now he loses the idol. I thought this was Mike loses the idol again. Turns out Daniel's the one who loses it.
I'm like, he, in case you're wondering, he gets the LVP of this episode. Just like,
there's definitely a reason for Chanel being the LVP, just because I think that there's a chance that she goes home next episode, actually more likely than Daniel, because Daniel has some grace now with Hai and Lydia, who now I think are in the power position of the tribe, whereas Chanel has her only alliances now with Mike, who has no votes.
Yeah. Another thing to say about that one thing, and this just like, I already really liked, Hai, but the fact where he was like, no, I'm not going to bend. I'm not going to sell out. Just like straight up, even though like he could have went over to the other side. He was like, no.
If he goes over to the other side, he goes home next. Then maybe Daniel goes home next, but that's like the only way that he would have been safe, is to then throw Daniel right under the bus right afterwards.
Yeah, and I think he kind of figured because since Mike and Chanel couldn't vote, they have no say in what actually happened. So they're not a part of the unanimous decision. Yeah. So the fact that like it was between, and I gotta say, it's so screwed up, like having to watch this play out when people are discussing in front of your face.
Yeah, I put here in the notes that tribal is so much more uglier when it's not just the votes. So when it's like you have to have a debate about who needs to go home, because now you're saying this person needs to go home. That person now feels like they're about to like die or something because it's like so dire.
Well, I mean, yeah, because it's like they're openly discussing your fate in the game.
Yeah.
Which is like, I can only imagine what they're going through in their head, and like for Jenny to like have to go through all of that.
It's so unfortunate for Jenny. Like this is just like this was just bad gameplay that ultimately takes her out. Like when I think about like what I wouldn't want to have happen to me in Survivor, it's like multiple people having very bad gameplay that causes me to be the one to go out. Like when people are just actively did something that was bad for their game, and it just felt like that happened to Jenny tonight, or this week.
Yeah, it was kind of, granted, like I did actually put her down as the 5th elimination, so I was roughly close. But like, yeah, it was just like, that's one of the worst things, just in general, when you end up losing out of things that are purely out of your hand. And I don't want to be too harsh to say the word incompetence, but because of the lack of what you said, or lack of good gameplay, where it's just like straight up one bad decision after another, that kind of just led to it. I do feel bad for her.
Yeah, I do think she had game. Like I know we were a little down on her in the pregame and everything, but I think she had, obviously she was very intelligent out there. She was the smartest one on the tribe, and she was in with the majority. Like the 4 of them. If they all had the votes, they all would have stuck together. They would not have blown up like this.
It's so sad. So sad. But like, even though like, I guess just the way Hai just kind of like was there for his ally, his friend, it was just like and I think
it's good. And Hai and Lydia, the duo from our Brand Steel, sticking strong in actual Survivor.
I know, it's life is poetic that way. So I have to give him the most valuable player. I do feel like you can probably choose like Jonathan if you want. I feel like he definitely
Yeah.
deserves one too. I'd say for
Yeah,
different
I was
reasons.
going to give it to Jonathan. I think I think there's two obvious runners for MVP and LVP. MVP is obviously Jonathan and High. LVP is Daniel and Chanel.
Yeah,
So I kind of think you could take either one and for
make
either
it
of
work.
them, and it would make sense.
Yeah.
So I
Um,
think just to be different than you, so that way we can kind of give share the love to people who did good and people who did bad equally. I'm going to choose Jonathan as the MVP and Chanel as the LVP.
yeah. Like you said, very good. Very good choices. Like because
Yeah.
in their own ways, I think like part of the reason why Daniel stuck out more to me was because he had more power
Mhm.
in that regard than Chanel did. Whether or not Chanel knew, like, oh, she actually did lose her vote or whatnot, he had more like power on his side, barring like the obviously she was in the prisoner's dilemma. So another argument could be made, she definitely had more power in that sense. But like with these advantages, you never know how they're going to actually play out, and you just kind of have to roll with what you got. I do feel like Daniel, just like after this, I can totally see, Chanel just being like, Daniel, you can't trust him. Um, like he's gonna
Yeah.
flip. And with merge coming, do we really want that? Also, he kind of injures
Yeah.
himself. He loses things.
Yeah, and this just proves why you never created a duo alliance with someone based off of necessity, because that's what Chanel said. She said, "Okay, well, Mike and Jenny are close, High and Lydia are close. I guess I got to work with Daniel now." That's that you never want to be in that situation. You never want to be like, "Oh, there's two duos already now. I guess I got to be with this guy," because
The last two people that haven't been picked for a team.
yeah, because why are they going to go to bat for you? Like they didn't have that
Yes.
they didn't have the connection of where they actually bonded. It was like, oh, we have to bond now.
Yeah.
So yeah. I also want to say Mike has an interesting line at the end of Tribal where he says it's never easy, even though he's only been to one Tribal.
I think he might have been just saying in the general because like
Yeah.
he's a huge Survivor fan.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I guess it's like one of those things where it's definitely like you can prepare yourself for tribal council in the sense of like, oh, I've watched the show, and even when you try and put yourself in that situation and kind of prepare,
Mhm.
and you kind of like think, this, that, and especially with these smaller tribes where they're a lot more intimate. I think like he was aware going into it. That's kind of how it was, and especially with the last season, him seeing was season 40, and like they had a lot of like because there were so many personal connections out in season 40, like some of the eliminations just hurt because like they just knew each other and so it was like taking down friends basically.
Yeah, I don't know, but just something quickly I had noticed as potentially interesting. I also want to say at the start of the episode, Lindsay gets the first confessional of the episode, even though I don't think she was the focal point of the previous tribal council. Yet we are first shown what she thinks about the whole situation. Potentially long-term player vibes from something like this is when they keep wanting to kind of show us someone's perspective, even if
Yeah,
they're not the one of the main focal points of the discussion.
like I said about Lindsay, because I always like in the beginning, I'm like, she's definitely someone to keep an eye out. She definitely has sleeper vibes, even
Yeah,
if it's not apparent. Like I'm like, don't overlook this woman.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I think she's doing pretty good. Yeah. Because usually, like I would imagine that the first person we would have heard from was Marianne or Omer. I feel like those people had a lot of say and a lot of importance in the tribal council. Yeah,
Yeah,
we get Lindsay, who I think was out of the four of them maybe the least important one in that tribal. So it's definitely interesting that that's who they chose, and they chose her for a reason to be talking about how they're feeling.
Yeah, and I feel like, yeah, that makes sense. Especially in the fact of like, because my original thought was like, oh, to spread the love, like so people get more like screen time, whatnot. But like, if that were the case, Ika would have had something going on in Tribe, even if it was kind of like a Tony Shark moment where you sort of just like, even if they were doing something goofy, even though it's not a goofy thing, or like if they were like, Roxroy, what's up? Or Tori just being Tori, or
you'd imagine we would have gotten at least like a minute and a half, 2 minute scene. Like even in Lubu, like they would be almost absent in episodes, yet we would still get a little something. Like even if it was like it would sometimes feel like it was nothing, and it was because they needed to show something, but it felt like nothing. So we aren't getting anything from Ika right now. So we'll see. You can miss an episode and it'll be fine, but if this becomes a recurrence, then
well, there's really only like 2 more episodes before the merge. So like, which is it's still an interesting thing in how we get like a merge at like episode 6.
I will say I don't think anyone from Ika will win the game. I like just looking at who's left. I really can't. I just can't see it. Like I see best case scenario like a runner up.
I don't know. Like
I think Drea is going to play herself out of the game.
No, I definitely think that is a possibility. I'm like, I don't want to sell anyone short, especially Tori, but like, or like Swati, like I said, she does give me Erica vibes. She's a lot, and we haven't obviously seen them at Tribal so much. But like, I don't sell her short.
By the way, did you see the secret scene with Swati and Roxroy?
No, what happened?
It was last week's episode. So it was about how Swati doesn't know like any big artists like Celine Dion, Cher, Aerosmith, like, and it's just like Roxroy, like just naming out like a bunch of these older like bands and stuff. And so I was just like, I don't know who that is. I've heard of them.
That's like every conversation between a millennial and Gen Z with any Gen X or baby boomer. Like my grandma will, mention these famous actors and like, which were big in her day. Like I know like super, super big people from her day and stuff. But if it was like a big star then that, wasn't part of like, film history or whatnot, it's hard for me to like be like, oh yeah, them. Even though they were big deal in her time.
Yeah, exactly. But in the secret scene, Swati does say that she likes talking to people like this, that are from different backgrounds and everything. And so this is why I don't think she's winning the game, because if this seems like good gameplay actually on her part, like this is how she's connected with Roxroy, with Drea, like how she's kind of like gotten herself into like the tribe is with by being interested in this kind of stuff. Yet we're being shown this in a secret scene and not out there on the islands.
Well, I mean, it's tough to say because like the secret scene I saw was I think it was like with Jonathan, and it's hard to say because like sometimes I see these sporadically, but like there's more than like one of these like scenes that kind of like pop up and stuff. I think there's just so much that happens on there, and like obviously since people always are like, ooh, more content and stuff, CBS or whatever will just put out more.
Typically the winner doesn't have secret scenes if it involves their gameplay. If it involves like, hey, I'm making a gameplay related thing, like that's why Heather in season 41 had a really good gameplay moment to like throw Sydney on the bus by using her dreams. We don't see that on the show. We see that in the secret scene because it's not needed, it's not necessary. So it's interesting. It's just something to notice is if anyone in a secret scene has like a very good gameplay thing that seems like it's working, it's probably means that they're not winning.
There is that possibility. I don't like counting people out.
Yeah.
It's not because she's just on my side. I'm like,
Yeah.
I just don't
I
like.
look at this as it's like one of those guess who games, and you're like trying to figure out, okay, this person has a strike against them here. Let's put them down here, and then let's see if I can get down to the point where only a few people have no strikes, and if all of them have strikes, then we'll open it back up to everyone who has a strike, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. Like, it is fun to like think about that and guess. I guess like, I don't know. It's like it depends on really how deep you look into like the edit. Like, I'd say I'm more surface level of like what's within the episode and stuff. You're able to like deep.
I'm looking at every little facet of what we're being shown by production. I want to know all the little tidbits.
Deep dive.
Yeah. I mean, it to me it does feel like either Taku or Vati. Like I feel like someone on those tribes are going. I'm actually now less sure on Vati now. I feel like Taku has the more likely potential for a winner. Like I don't know. I just think that this trial might have ruined at least a few people on Vati. There's still a few winner potentials on Vati, but it's I see more on
Taku. Uphill battle.
Yeah,
I would say Hyde does have an uphill battle because even when he gets to the merging stuff, I think we both agree he's going to do well. However, when you get into that, like, when you get into that, like, final 7, final 6 kind of thing, he's like, hey, he's kind of a big threat.
Yeah.
And it depends on like obviously where the numbers are and how many of what tribe goes into it, and how those relations kind of go.
Yeah, and if Jonathan's still around at that point and he can just win all the immunity challenges, then Hai can't use that as a potential, because that's what got Ricard a little further in the game, was he was winning these immunities that he needed to, and eventually, he couldn't win Final 5, but like, he probably would have gone out a little earlier had he not won.
Yeah. Stuff to say. I don't know, like I was half tempted to see, who could the winner maybe be? It's tricky. Because like this time last season, no one thought that Erica was going to win. I wouldn't say until like episode 7 or 8, I was like, wait, maybe. Maybe it was
it was hourglass moments where I think a lot of people started having that kind of like, wait a second, is she actually important? Because she started making like the comparisons that she hasn't done anything in the game yet. Plus, we were like had that moment where they try to throw a challenge to get rid of Erica. So there's like kind of this weird like, wait a second, why are they so afraid of her? Like that was like the story that was being told. So yeah, who knows? We still might not see that kind of edit again till halfway through. I don't know. I kind of think that they might be doing a little thing different here. I think that they're trying to change up the formula from 41, and so I think they might have been giving us a little more nuggets on things way earlier, because they don't want someone to feel like, oh, this person just kind of came out of nowhere and won.
I think sometimes it's a tough thing to do though, because kind of like with another big victim of that where, they didn't really pop up until like post game and they were kind of a sleeper. Biggest example I usually go to, Michelle Fitzgerald, where it's like just due to the fact where by nature, if you don't go to tribal council before the merge, you have less screen time because the last half of the episode is dedicated to tribal council. It's hard to get more screen time out of them as a result.
Natalie Anderson's another good one there. She's actually pretty quiet, at least the first portion of the game. Jeremy Collins seems like he's the winner. Like he has the winner edit vibes almost, and then when he goes, then Natalie ends up picking up the slack pretty much.
Yeah, she was like, all right, my ally's gone, I'm gonna take it. Y'all are not gonna see it coming.
Yeah, exactly. So it can happen, like, but the thing is, it has to really make sense for the story. So it depends on who ends up winning. If it is more of a sleeper person like an Erica, Yeah, it usually like they usually try to not let you know in the first episode or at two. But if it's someone who is a bigger character, and I think there's a lot of good characters on the season, I think they're
Agreed.
gonna want to let you know that this person's important and show you their winner vibes very early on.
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
Mhm.
Especially at especially when we do our Furge assessment.
Yeah.
The the Furge assessment, like after episode 5, when 6 people are eliminated,
Mhm.
um, kind of like what we do with our brands, we kind of see, well, like, all right, well, who do you think shaping up to be the winner here?
Mhm.
And then, kind of like how when it's like the winner and stuff. The winner we kind of want to be a surprise, but at the
Yeah.
same time, like they have to make it make sense.
Yeah, it can't just be out of nowhere, because it just leaves you unsatisfied if suddenly,
Like
so yeah, what?
like Danny Boatwright.
No, not Danny Boat, right?
Yeah!
I was gonna say more like a Chris Underwood, but that one they had no choice but
Yeah,
to do something
it's
like
kind of hard to like, other than
that.
what they did with giving him a lot of screen time, on Edge,
Yeah.
which you pointed out. Uh, like it's kind of hard because like, they can only, yes, they create the narrative, but with reality TV, there's only they can only work with what they're given.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, exactly. I wonder how much they try to poke and prod, especially on like in an Edge of Extinction when like they're getting ready for a challenge. Like, I bet they're trying to get like a winner confessional out of them because that's what they did with Chris was that they got a winner confessional from him going into that challenge pretty much.
I don't know. It's like because I've watched a little bit of like Big Brother when they did live streams and stuff.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know like how much similarities they have when it's like, oh, the questions they ask at confessional.
Mhm.
But I believe Frankie Grande, he was like, oh, sometimes you can kind of pick up things just by what they're asking.
Mhm.
Kind of like it's kind of like you can't help but like metagame a little bit just because you
Yeah.
hear some of the things and like depending on whatever questions, and they've been doing it for like 20 years, so they kind of know at this point of like, all right, what kind of like questions that could give us that winner edit, and so like they have like possibly one for everyone in that regard.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, if you're out there for a long amount of time, you probably had something that related to you doing well in the game, or something that showed that you're doing, positive results. Especially if you
Yeah,
end up being the winner. Like if you are the winner, then you definitely had to have had those moments. Like there's no way that you just were a blank slate out there the whole time.
and sometimes some confessionals are out of order. I would say like
Yeah.
the most obvious time I noticed it was in Cook Islands where Cowboy was giving confessional and he had a different buff on.
Mhm.
So like, and then like also I remember watching Heroes versus Villains, and then Sandra's clothes were similar in one scene as opposed to another one, but not just the clothes, the position she was in.
Mhm.
Like even if you shoot on the same location,
Yeah.
like your body will sit maybe a little bit differently, or like maybe your legs not as arched. There would be like something different.
Yeah, this is actually why I didn't think Daniel was the first boot of the season. Was that in that trailer promo of it, you saw that he had a bit of a scraggly beard at that
Stubble.
point. Yeah, like it was definitely more than what you would get in a 3-day period.
That's fair.
Yeah. So now we got it now. So now we've seen it, but yeah, now we're now Daniel and Marianne have now been shown the scenes that we've seen in the promo. So now they are officially like we know that they can now go home.
Yeah. Could be no. So next episode, Tori reads that thing, and then we have everything.
Yeah.
Um,
Does she read it next? I don't think she reads it next episode. I think she reads it in episode 5.
episode. Either
that-
way, like that's like no, I'm saying like that's like the last thing we have from the trailer that isn't like an action shot.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if this is the case, though, this should be good for you, Ryan. This means that Tori makes it to episode 5.
Yes.
She can't go home next week if my theory is correct.
I do hope that Survivor kind of takes this as a learning experience, because with their first 2 eliminations, and I think one of the things that made this episode great was, in contrast, because we knew certain events had to happen, we automatically knew the person was safe as a result of it. So like once that happens, like, okay, now we get this. And then the whole thing with Jackson in the beginning, where they, showed pics, trailers from the first, like immunity challenge, and Jackson wasn't there. Like hopefully they learn to be a bit more, kind of be like Marvel when it comes to like not showing too much in these trailers.
Yeah, they should really only show stuff in the first episode, because like if you get spoiled on premiere stuff, you're usually fine with it, because like that's
the first episode.
Yeah, it's the first episode. Like you got to get them hooked somehow. So like show them. Also, don't show advantages. Like do not show who's getting the advantages. Like that totally ruins the fun of who's getting the advantages.
Yeah, because like this is the first time where watching a Survivor season that I a new Survivor season that I know nothing about, no one knows anything about, where I'm like looking for, oh well, this happened, so they can't be eliminated just yet. I think because they kind of wanted to show like the craziness of like the phrases they have to say or whatnot. But we'll see with 43 and 44.
Exactly. Okay, is there anything else that we haven't covered on this episode?
Nope. I think that's everything.
Yeah, Jenny saying that voting her off will fraction the tribe is very true. I think that's going to be the case of this tribe. I don't think any of them will be working with each other long term.
I don't think that was I don't really think that what fractured the tribe. I think the inciting incident that fractured the tribe was Daniel just like trying to be like, no, it was all her idea. The person that wasn't even on the island when we were thinking of who to eliminate, it was all her idea all along. When he started doing that, that's like, all right, split down the middle.
Yeah, but there is, the case that, 4 of them were going in here with the intention that they wanted someone to go home. And the fact that the majority doesn't get what they want. It's never like, you never want to be on any side of that, pretty much, because that basically means that there's going to be a lot of discontent with each other going back to camp. And Mike, I think, is going to be very pissed because he just lost his closest ally. He can't vote, and he just got screwed over and thrown under the bus by Daniel, who he was already not like super high on. He was just trying to make him comfortable, but didn't work.
I will say the one note I made, there was a nice little wave and it had a little rainbow in one of the shots, and I was like, that's a nice shot.
Nice. Okay.
Other than that, we went through everything.
Yeah. Okay, well, I guess that's gonna do it here for this episode of the Day After Podcast. All
right, guys, I hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned. Got more Survivor, and who knows, we could have something else planned.
And let us know in the comments below who you think is going home at next tribal council.
All right, peace.
Adios.